Although it is one of the most built-up, most populous places on Earth, Germany manages to conserve a surprising amount of nature. And even though it is the main highway of Europe, the Rhine has an other world, other time character. The Celts named the great river, but many ancient peoples settled along its shores and in the vast woodlands. None left a richer legacy than the Romans. The colossal Porta Nigra, the black gate of the city of Trier, which is tucked away near the Luxembourg border. It was, they say, as Roman as Rome itself. Former site of a pagan shrine, Trier was at first a resting place for the conquering legions. But located at a crossroads of the empire, it grew in importance, ultimately becoming official seat of the Emperor of Gaul and Britain. It was called Treveris then, after the Celtic Germanic tribe that Julius Caesar vanquished during the Gallic Wars. Today, Trier is a tremendous repository of priceless relics, comprising monuments and buildings, weapons, and artworks. Many of today's German cities were founded on Roman settlements. Before they were conquered in turn, the Romans laid down a mosaic of political, economic, and cultural structures that would profoundly influence European history. But an even more powerful force was reaching across Europe. Nebulous as fog at first, then deeply entrenched. Christianity. This Benedictine abbey, named for St. George, was one of the earliest bastions of the church in Germany. It is on the island of Reichenau, on Bavaria's Lake Constance. At its peak, more than 1,600 monks were cloistered here. It also housed one of the most famous schools of medieval painting. The monks of the Middle Ages were accomplished artists. They were builders, too. And many Romanesque churches and cathedrals were begun under their direction. But the monks were not alone. The Franks had emerged from the collapse of the old order as the dominant Germanic tribe, and with the church, they founded the Holy Roman Empire. The greatest Frankish leader was Charlemagne. This mighty sovereign loved the town of Aachen, a former Roman spa, and established his favorite residence there. Around 746, he had this imperial chapel built. Not surprisingly, it is also known as the Octagon. It became the core of Aachen's cathedral, and for 6 centuries, most German kings were crowned here. At one time, the Holy Roman Empire contained what are today Germany, Austria, Western Czechoslovakia, Switzerland, Eastern France, the Low Countries, and large areas of Italy. But the heart of the realm lay in Germany, and its sovereign was nearly always a German king. The ideals of the empire's founders were never realized, but the institution survived for centuries. One result for Germany was a superb heritage of sacred art and buildings. The massive Romanesque style spread throughout the country. To this day, the focal point of many a German town and city remains its Romanesque cathedral. To travel the breadth of the Federal Republic is to take a very real journey into living history. By all accounts, the Middle Ages were solemn times at best. Nevertheless, we have the convincing evidence in Gothic art and architecture that Europeans still believed in possibilities. Germany is especially blessed with these magnificent structures of carved stone and stained glass. Not all that is splendid is on such a grand scale. St. Jacob's Church in Rothenburg. The Holy Blood altar in the west choir of the church is the masterpiece of Tilman Riemenschneider, a woodcarver from Würzburg. His extraordinary work is found throughout the Tauber Valley, but this altar is considered the best example. The master carver was following an old tradition. His craft was well advanced in Germany long before the Romans came, and incredibly complex sculptures in wood are unique features of many of Germany's medieval buildings. Nuremberg. From the 14th to 17th centuries, it was one of the most important cultural centers in Europe. The ordinary citizen was feeling a new sense of self-confidence. Men were focusing interest on themselves, an attitude exemplified in works such as this one by sculptor Adam Kraft, a contemporary of Albrecht Dürer. The artists and scholars of Nuremberg helped lead the way into an exciting new era that was just beginning. Like so many places in Germany, Nuremberg retains the character of a former age. Toward the end of the Middle Ages, painting became an increasingly important art form in Germany. Although people had become more worldly, more concerned with self, the theme of the early masters was usually religious. Meanwhile, the wealthy merchants of Germany's northern city-states were forming the Hanseatic League, which was to achieve enormous power on land and on the seas. Lübeck became headquarters city of the League in 1358. It remained Queen of the Hanse, as it was called, for almost 300 years. Bremen was another dynamic member of the League. Germany's oldest port, its spirit was portrayed in this statue of Roland. His shield bears the words, "I show you freedom." Since 1545, the magnificent Renaissance Great Hall of Bremen's Rathaus has been the scene every year of a huge formal banquet for sailors and shipbuilders. The German Rathaus has always been more than just a city hall. It is a forum for the community, symbolizing the autonomy of the people. Often it is wonderfully decorated, as here in the council chamber of the Rathaus at Goslar, southeast of Hanover. These beautifully fresh-looking paintings were done almost 500 years ago. Unfortunately, we do not know the artist's name. Living history. It's almost everywhere you turn. For not only individual buildings and works of art have survived wars and natural disasters, but whole cities and towns remain much the way they were built by the good burghers so long ago. Living history.
Herzlicher Blumenkohl, mein Gott. Ganz prima mit der...
Living history. Regensburg on the Danube, whose character is greatly influenced by the unique tower houses built by the city's patricians from the 12th through the 14th centuries. Living history, whether Regensburg or Rothenburg. Many of Germany's festivals today have their roots in religious feasts or great victory celebrations of centuries ago. And every region of the country has its own special events. Tradition is more than a word in this country. It is an important part of everyday life. Great changes swept across Germany in the late Middle Ages, but the might of the baronial families remained intact. However, the nobility began leaving their ancestral homes, which were really only fortresses built for war, not living, and established for themselves larger, more comfortable quarters in palaces and manor houses. The nobility acquired ever more wealth. And now the treasures of their household fill galleries and museums, showing us a glimpse of a scale of living that we can scarcely imagine. They were not, of course, peaceful times. Many of the treasures were plundered, it's true, but many others were crafted by highly skilled artisans commissioned by the nobility. Even toys became breathtaking works of art. Lucas Cranach was one of the most influential German artists of the early 16th century. He was a popular painter at court, and despite his many nudes, was also patronized by the leaders of the Reformation as a friend of Martin Luther. Cranach had an enormous range of themes. Here he poignantly illustrates the age-old longing for eternal youth. Munich's Alte Pinakothek grew out of a small gallery established for the 16th century court. And today, it houses the largest Rubens collection anywhere. After the devastation of the 30 Years' War, art became filled with vitality and Lebenslust, the joy of living, and Rubens captured the new mood as no other artist could. The exuberance of the last half of the 17th century is expressed beautifully in the architecture of West Berlin's Schloss Charlottenburg. It was built in 1695 on grounds that were chosen personally by Sophie Charlotte, first Queen of Prussia. Much of Charlottenburg is in the Baroque style, as in this music room, the Blue Salon. But Germany has more elaborate examples of Baroque excess, such as the stairway at Schloss Augustusburg near Cologne. The Germans, especially the Bavarians in the south, fell in love with the Rococo and Baroque styles no matter how they were expressed. Here, for example, in Meissen and Frankenthal porcelain. Munich's Schloss Nymphenburg holds many Rococo treasures, while the residence in Würzburg is the Baroque masterwork of the gifted Balthasar Neumann. became sinfully elaborate in their decorations, each parish trying, it seems, to outdo all the others in glorifying the Lord. Just over 100 years ago, the insane King Ludwig II of Bavaria built this fairy tale castle called Neuschwanstein. Ludwig was clinging to old times and old customs. But the 19th century brought the Industrial Revolution and more great changes. There was prosperity for Germany, but also important, there was a revolution in the arts. Painters such as Caspar David Friedrich continued to show realistic objects, but with a difference, and the way was paved for the highly personalized painting that was to follow. Queen Nefertiti of ancient Egypt, carved and painted 2,300 years ago, holds court in Berlin's State Museum. That lovely lady of so long ago might not understand the way our contemporary artists portray the female form. But it is as certain as the passing of time that she would appreciate and approve of the vast assembly of living history displayed in the open treasure chest that is Germany today.